make it a slight increase for the district so that there are no shocks later on down the line. Further down, you'll see everything is pretty stable until you get to health insurance. Because we're part of NISHIP, the Empire Plan, we did get notification in late December that the rate was going up about 13%, which is in reality a staggering amount considering last year that there was a decline in the health insurance rate. Now, one of the main reasons to understand why this is important is because it's really based on expenses and other actuarial numbers from the prior year. And what happened in 2021? People started going back to the doctor. Elective surgeries returned. Costs for the prior year needed to be made up. But more importantly, one of the other ancillary factors, which everybody in this room may have experienced, telehealth appointments became a thing in the health insurance world. And that became a very big billable expense for health insurance companies. And that has added to the exposure that is now being passed on to NISHIP members. On top of all that, many of the tests that have been mandated and have gone on have been flowed through the health insurance system. This is the primary reason we're seeing a 13% increase. And I just want to make it clear, this isn't a Sayville thing, this increase. This is a statewide phenomenon that we're seeing this much of an increase. In comparison, now, to put it into dollars, as I said, it's over $1.6 million, which is really almost the entire amount of the tax cap, and it is an obligatory expense that the district must pay. So I wanted to just give that overview as to why there is such a big increase. We're hoping that next year it is not as much, but those are the primary factors that have driven this cost to this level. So to put it in graphic format to see from over a 5-year period from 2018 to 2023, we see the increases that have occurred. You had a 2-3 year period from 1920 to 21, 22. Again for pretty understandable reasons. However, in 22, 23, you do see the big jump with the blue line. Debt service, one of the other categories that we discussed last week. Our bond obligations, our principal, interest, our energy performance contract. As you see, the number is slightly going down by $100,000. That's as we've paid off debt over time. Our debt service rating has remained AA1 since 2016. Again, it's for borrowings that we've taken over the years to pay for construction costs, energy performance projects, and what's in our tax anticipation notes, which was, I believe, described earlier this year. These are monies that we borrow now, well, I should say in the fall, in anticipation of tax revenue that would come in the subsequent months. And again, to kind of put it graphically, you see it's a pretty stable line over the last 5 years. Our debt service in 2013-14 was $5.8 million, just almost 5.9, and over the last 10 years, it's gone down by about $1.3 million. So that being said, this is a repeat slide from last week, just to bring it back. A look at our future debt service. We do see that over the next 3 years, there is a decline. Not that much of a decline projected, but then the cliff starts after the 25 school year. Now, debt service and building aid, which is part of our state aid that we get from the state, are linked. So what is it that we have to do so that we don't have a loss of state aid once we approach that cliff? So managing debt service, what do we do? It's time to possibly look at another bond. And as mentioned last week, the projects which I'll put up that would benefit the district's infrastructure. Continuing to maintain a level of debt service and expenditures over future years allows for the upkeep of the district's infrastructure, its capital upgrades. It maintains our budget expenses as they are at a stable level without adding additional burden to the tax rate. It fills the gap where we have decreasing debt, as I mentioned. We do get aided for our capital expenses. And our building aid ratio is 68%. So we get 68 cents for every dollar that's approved for our capital expenses from Albany. Our estimated timeline, again, I put it up on the screen last week. Our needs assessment, about 2 months from now. This is something that has been going on. That's why the time frame is a little bit shorter. Our evaluation period, the same. It's been going on. So 3 months from now till the May 22 budget vote. The architect would prepare and plan specs for submittal to SED. It would probably take about 6 months within that scope to have it prepared and sent up, then bidding, construction, borrowing would have to be after SED approval, which again, it's about a year and a half from now if everything does go well, which we do anticipate at the beginning of the 2023-24 school year, which would stabilize us in the capacity of building aid received and also managing our debt service expense so that there are no shifts and there are no fluctuations. And again, some of the potential future bond work that I mentioned last week, the roof and edging at Sayville High School, Cherry Avenue, Lincoln, Sunrise, and the administration building. That roofing project would, again, come with a full 20-year warranty on the entire structure, potentially solar panels at Sayville High School and Cherry Avenue Elementary, and also completing or going through with the HVAC project at Sayville High School in the auditorium. Yes, yes, sir.
Can we actually do something separately on just on the bond, all the bond projects?
What was the first one?
At a future board meeting? Just presentation, just.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
would appreciate it next meeting.
Absolutely. And just to expand upon that, I just wanted to lay the groundwork as to one of the budget components to talk about in the future, but as an integral part of this the process as well.
Thank you.
Okay, one of the other areas that I mentioned in our expense codes, contractual expenditures, and just to go over it, this current year, our contractual expenditures are $6.27 million, and next year we're looking at $6.47 million. It's a pretty stable number. Really, the only big areas of expense by percentage are some of the dues that we pay, our dues, our fees, and also our operation of plant. You know, the projects that keep the lights on, the doors on, and the security systems running. Again, it's a really modest increase of 3.61% from year to year. Graphically, you see that the stability over the 5-year period, both in managing our projects and managing our expenses with our contracted services. One of the bigger expense lines that us and any district maintains, BOCES, the Board of Cooperative Educational Services. Just to go over what is BOCES, what do we use it for? It's a cost-effective, value-added approach to providing specific educational services for students, whether it be special ed, career, technical ed, or other alternative type education. They do generate either specific BOCES aid or expenditure-driven aid, high-cost aid, which is for high-cost special ed services, high-cost special ed students, or transportation aid, as we do have to transport our students to and from a BOCES facility. The estimated BOCES aid for next year is approximately $1.4 million. The bullet that is highlighted in red, it's no longer a proposal to combine it into a single services aid. During last year's budget proposal, which is, encompasses the year that we are in right now, there was a proposal by the executive to roll all of the services aid. So there would be foundation aid and other aid. That's it, not the specific aids. That was something that was toyed around. Last year was actually something that was toyed around about 30 years ago as well. The governor has nixed that idea and proposal altogether so that BOCES aid will remain the same, which is actually good for us because we're able to monitor not only our BOCES expenses, but how much money we are receiving on those said expenses. Again, to kind of, go further with that point, we do get about 54% of BOCES aid, so if we spend about $6 million, we do get a little over, 3.1, 3.2 million. And what do they include? Our general and administrative expenses, whether it is internet usage that we buy from BOCES, some of their purchasing services, instructional and occupational ed services, which I'll talk about later. These are the career and tech ed programs that we send our students to. And as I said before, special education and some transportation services as well. Those latter two categories generate what's known as high-cost aid and transportation aid, not specifically the BOCES aid that's listed above. Okay. And again, our trend is pretty consistent, which is something that any district would like to see with respect to BOCES expenditures. It's a good measure of the students that we are sending, but also students that we're able to bring back into the district. Supplies, obviously one of the most important things for any district to operate. We see that there is, again, an increase of 8.6%. As we all know, we're in a period of rising costs, rising prices, which is reflected in that number. But due to the diligent work of the principals, directors, budget managers, We're able to contain some of those costs. We're able to do some of those purchases now so that that number is not higher than what it is. Based on next year's enrollment, we project an average of $779 of a spend per student, and those appropriations are used for everything, and more important this year, the return to in-person instruction and the materials for in-person instruction. And similar to the other charts, you see that the trend is pretty consistent. Textbooks and workbooks. Budgeted amount is unchanged from last year, $344,500. Textbook monies can also be used, in addition from traditional textbooks, for Chromebooks and electronic books, electronic texts. We will continue the purchase of ebooks and compatible software, and we will also continue expanding and developing the existing classroom libraries and writing libraries. We do receive aid on our textbook purchases, approximately $160,000, which is just about half, a little under, and similar to the BOCES aid, that was one of the ideas to combine it into a single aid that is also off the table. So we will have a good idea of our expenses and how much money we do receive. And again, graphically, you see that the consistency is also there over a 5-year period. And just to kind of recap what I just said, these are the main components of our budget, which is at $99,302,157, a 2.4 increase that comes with a 1.72% proposed tax increase as well. So just to go a little bit into the 172 and the mechanics of it, this is the tax levy limit for Sayville schools. It's a calculation. Commonly, you've heard it, or it's referred to as the 2%. It's actually more than just a 2% standard. It's an 8-step formula. Because of what goes into the formula, ours is actually under 2%. Now, to put that into perspective, because there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about rising costs, inflation, especially with the news today that came out about the CPI this afternoon. The U.S. city average for the Consumer Price Index, or the U.S. city average, for the period ending December 2021. Now, I put December, even though we're in February, because that's the number that they use. They used the 12-month average January to December. So at the time, because I did update this right before the meeting, the CPI was 7%. Starting 2021, it's now 7.5%. The Northeast region, 5.9% in December. We're starting the year at 6.3%. Localized, which is the number that the state uses, the New York, Newark, Jersey City CPI is 4.4%. Starting the year, we're at 5.1%. So as you see, there's a pretty big inflationary CPI number that's working here. The New York State tax cap, which is, well, I'm just going to use the tagline, 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. So in this case, it's 2%. When plugged into the formula for Sayville, it's actually less than 2%. It's 1.72%. So the containment of cost is visible when it's compared to everything else that is occurring, throughout the country, throughout the region, with respect to costs and cost increases. Additionally, with our school fiscal health, or report card, our district bond rating, as I mentioned, is a AA1, which is one of the highest by Moody's and/or Standards & Poor. Our fiscal stress report, there was no designation since its inception 7 years ago, and our external audit management letter has come with no comments this past year. So our continued fiscal health it allows us to sustain and develop our instructional programs. And to tie that back in to the instructional side, which is what I mentioned last week, I did mention some highlights. These are some additional highlights that I did not speak about last week. Why is this budget important? What do these numbers produce? What do they generate? And from the perspective of the instructional program, a lot. 80% of Sayville High School graduates 2021 went to a four-year higher education institute. 98% went to a 2- or 4-year institute of higher learning. 41% of the high school graduating class in 2021 enrolled in at least one AP class in which they scored a 3 or higher, so they would be eligible for some sort of college credit. The occupational ed program through BOCES, also known as the Academy, enrolls 58 students currently, which is about 6% of the Sayville High School population. And what are those programs? Preparation for law enforcement, plumbing, electrical, cosmetology, digital production, aviation professional pilot training. These are some of the other programs that our students are enrolled in as a result of this budget. Over the last 12 years, all ICT students graduated on time with their respective cohort. They did not fall behind. Per student, Sayville High School averages 2.1 activities outside of the curriculum, whether they be athletics, co-curricular, fine arts. Our elementary and middle schools, continued implementation of Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, also known as TC. Noticeable and measurable advancements have been noticed in writing, reading, engagement, and comprehension skills. Our new language-rich math program, Into Math, realized annual student growth via the assessments that are given. Our full-day integrated co-teaching programs have adopted a more inclusive model all around, further immersion into the 21st century libraries that are in the buildings, and what they offer, technologies, coding, laces the languages and culture, an elementary school program. And our athletics program, I mentioned the accolades last week. This week, the boys wrestling League 6 championship, girls basketball team is in the playoffs, and we also have 12 Division I and Division II athletes going 12 Division I and Division II bound athletes that include Yale, UPenn, West Point, Duquesne, Flagler, St. Leo's, LIU, and Adelphi. And the preservation of these programs, effective staff development, and educational opportunities give that sense of pride and accomplishment from our programs, and that is all generated. The foundation is the school budget. So again, in summary, that is our number, 99,302,157. An increase of 2.3 million or 2.4%, a 1.72% tax rate increase, which equates to about $11.50 per month of an increase, and we are at the property tax cap levy. And with that, our next meeting is March 3rd, 2022, in which we'll talk about transportation, equipment, transfer to capital and special aid funds. We'll talk about revenues, fund balance, reserve funds, possible budget modifications. And I'd also like to mention one of the items that was in the supply line that I mentioned earlier is a continuation of the support of the UPK program, which we did put in place this year at Lincoln Avenue. That's it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. Regarding the health insurance,
Yes.
I know we had a reserve. Are we using additional funds?
Yes, and it's going to reflect in next week's, or I should say in the presentation in a couple of weeks, that we are planning to use $466,000 from that to offset some of the costs.
Yeah, I
Because,
think last year was like 50% of that or something.
I'm sorry?
Last year we used much less, I believe, right?
Yes, yeah, we did because the cost increase was minimal. Again, if you compare the cost of health insurance, the increase, to the tax levy, it basically eats up the tax levy just in that one budget line alone.
And the reason we had the reserve is because we pursued our right to the, what was the case?
It was the Suffolk Schools Employee Health Plan settlement that was in litigation for about 4 years.
Thank you.
Okay, before we move off school update, and I would like to tie something between the budget and our school update, and it goes back to a question we received last week. So the American Rescue Plan provided funding for school districts to engage in a variety of activities that in particular are designed to help students compensate for any possible gaps that have occurred over the course of the pandemic. And if you recall, I showed a slide where our elementary students are engaged in a very productive and rewarding after-school program. But the question that came to us last week was, well, what kind of strings are attached to that funding? So what kind of commitments have the district made? And in fact, did the district commit to mandatory applications of childhood vaccines for COVID? So I want to reassure the community that no commitment was made for that. The entire application is available online, so as community members, anyone can look it up. It is on our district webpage. And I'm just going to ask Dr. Kashoni and Dr. Gurgis to just touch on it and maybe just address some of those concerns that were voiced last week.
I'm sorry, for the webpage, could we just make it a little bit more prominent on the, so it's
Sure.
easy to point?
Sure, absolutely. So the American Rescue Plan is an umbrella program where a lot of different funds were allocated for different things across the country. One small arm of it was for education, as certain gear funds. That's the funding that funneled through the state down to the school districts. We had to apply for that funding. The only regulation for that funding was that we had to allot 20%, at least 20% of our funds to address learning loss, child mental health, and social emotional learning. Those are the only requirements that we had to follow. Part of that is we've done way more than 20%. We were doing the after-school programs at all of our buildings, some early morning programs as well. And the key piece of the legislation was to open up schools full-time in person. So whatever you have to do to open up schools and whatever materials you need to do to open up the schools. And that's really the gist of what the grant funds were made to do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any of the board members have questions about it? It's plain and simple.
Okay. All right, and that concludes my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stonewall. Next item on the agenda tonight is Board of Ed discussion. We have a couple of items. The first one is last Saturday, there was a Longwood legislative breakfast out, it was virtual. Normally it's in person. It's probably about 600 people, 700 people there. We have the opportunity to meet with most of our local legislators out in Longwood. This year we had Smith, Fitzpatrick, Thiel, who else was there? Alexis White, Godolfo, a couple of other people. It was probably one of the more interesting ones that I've attended. I've attended probably about 15 of them. One thing that most of all these legislators that were there were absolutely against having a mask mandate. Absolutely against having a mandatory vaccine. So it's a proof that keep on reaching out to your local legislators, keep on reaching out to your local politicians, and I think it does work. And in addition to that, there was also some discussion, this has probably to do with board level stuff, is about increasing our reserve. It's currently at 4%, which is kind of like, people think it's low, they're talking about raising it to 6 to 8%. And even further discussion about continuation of the free lunch that we currently have for many districts. So it's a lot of interesting things going on, and I have to say that probably something that one of our local people said that sent us all back, that there's no free lunch. But I guess if you're in a struggling district where 90% of your students are on free and reduced lunch, you need to feed your kids. And I think it needs to continue throughout the district, throughout the island, so it's very important. I know Mr. Cooley attended as well, so Tom wants to say anything.
Yeah, I just thought the free lunch thing was interesting to watch online. All 12 legislators were saying, yes, we want to make sure our kids have food and not be stressed. One after another, they kept saying, and then Fitzpatrick said, there's no free lunch. You know, he was the only one that was negative about it.
I think some disturbing numbers that came out during this, as well as the amount of teen suicides that many districts are seeing post-pandemic and prior pandemic. So it's certainly it's been extremely difficult on everybody, and it's good to know that we do have some of our legislators in our corner fighting for us. So and I think there's going to be another legislative breakfast that's put out by not just up the school boards, and that's going to be, I think, sometime in March.
And Dr. Gurgis, just a point of clarification, with the free lunch program, that would be funded with federal dollars?
Yes, and we actually did an analysis this week, and our revenue stream as a result of that being calculated just as a federally funded solely program has actually put us in a very good fiscal position for that school lunch fund.
Next item on the board discussion is number 2, high school team.
That was mine. Thanks, Mr. for doing. So I asked to talk about this. Several community members have reached out to me about the gym at the high school needing a facelift. It's way past due, I think. And I just wanted to know if that was possible and what kind of, improvements could be made and what kind of timeline we would, if it is possible.
So, just before I asked Dr. Burgess to talk about that, because I did ask him to be prepared to address what can be done and what we are currently planning to do, but just a little bit of history. We did have problems with the floor in the high school, and that took, it actually wound up taking, it was over the course of several years before we got that resolved. And we didn't want to do anything else until we got the floor situation resolved. That has been resolved. And so now, we are, it does make sense to start considering other things. So Dr. Burgess has met with Mr. Castellano, our head of buildings and grounds, Mr. Selkirk, Mr. Hopper, to discuss what needs to be done in the gymnasium. So, Dr. Burgess?
So the walkthrough was conducted. There are definite cleaning and maintenance protocols that are going to be addressed in terms of going forward, but for the actual restoration, we are looking to have a top to bottom painting of the entire facility, from the bleachers on up, the walls, the beams, the ceiling. We'll try and also do some restoration work with the rafters to clean them up as well. We do think with the painting will accentuate their image, their how they look, so to speak. Timeline, we are looking at possibly the summer. The only thing we have to be concerned about is the heat and humidity at that time, so that we don't have to do another paint job or whatnot. So that's what we're looking at doing. If we're able to even do it before the start of the summer, if there's any possible way. I do have to get a better timeline, but it's going to be at least a week where the gym would be closed down in order to paint it. Ideally, it would be the first week in July, because that's the transition period between the end of school and the new school year. But that's what we're looking at right now.
How is the lighting situation?
At the gym?
Yeah.
It's so far it's okay, but one of the things that we're also looking at is to take out the fixtures and clean underneath, so that it might improve the luminosity that's coming from above.
Okay. And have those fixtures been replaced with any of our programs that we had with the?
We did a lighting.
Yeah. Well,
The light on the floor.
I think I just don't know what the age of them are,
Yeah.
and if there are newer type of bulbs that can be.
Yeah, I don't know if we replaced the fixtures, I think we probably replaced the bulb.
Sometimes you don't need to replace the fixtures, it's just the bulbs that you have to put in because they are adaptable. But again, every so often there are new bulb types that come out, so I do have to check if there's like a newer generation that's come out.
And before most people's time, the reason that the lighting is so poor is because there used to be all windows across the top of the gym, which in one renovation they were all closed up. But that's probably why there's always this dreary atmosphere. But if we improve the lighting, I think that would help a lot.
How about when we talk about banners, like county jams of whatever year or something? I
You
mean,
doing them?
do we have any? I mean, like if some of them are
Yeah,
falling down, I mean. Like
No,
we have
and that's actually one of the things that Mr. Castellano was discussing, because once you do the paint, the banners, the condition of the banners is going to be, might become an issue.
And one of the other things that we've talked about, not even with this project, but over at high school, stemming again before me with the floor, is just management and a better understanding of the control system, the building management system that would regulate the humidity and the environmental controls within that space, so that some of the items, some of the paint, whatever else, won't degrade, and also that it's comfortable in there.
Thank you. I think it would serve to really, provide like a place of pride for our teams when we have other visiting teams coming in. Be proud of our space.
And as this continues, I'll provide updates as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go a little out of order. Claims order report, any questions on the claims order report?
No, look good.
It's good. All right, hold on. Okay, next item is reopening update. And as everyone probably knows, that eventually these mask mandates are going to go away. We've asked the superintendent to prepare some reopening protocol, and we're going to get some information from our attorney. Hopefully we'll have it tomorrow, and prepare for reopening in the event of any changes. In addition to that, on top of that, as the board knows, we always received a number of letters from community members asking us to send another letter to the governor. We received samples of 2 letters, one from Superintendent's Association and another from, I think Seaford sent it out. And it's direct the superintendent to write, yeah. And to be very candid, it's very frustrating, the letter. We've written probably about 4 or 5 letters. The governor has not responded to any of them. The only response we ever got from anybody is from the town supervisor about something. So I think that we write, certainly write another letter, and maybe word it a little differently, a little stronger. Take something from the Superintendent's Association and see if we can send something out. I don't know.
I would call, numbers right online. There's a 212 number, a 518 number, I added the number.
Personally, I don't think write another letter. We can certainly write another letter. But I don't know how we word it. It's at the point where I think the governor just sticking their heels in the ground, not really listening to a lot of the schools, school boards, superintendents, and other leaders of education. So it's up in the air. Certainly.
Well, the letter from the superintendent's group did mention, let's get some clear metrics here, and are we following them, and how that's good information.
And to be candidly, I think our letters are very cordial. They have been really forceful. Personally, I would like to demand answers from the governor, because the governor does work for people. I'm a people, we're people, all people. And say we need some strong criteria from the governor, from your leadership, and say, please, give us something so we can all work on our communities. All these communities are on edge. We all know that. Every single school community on Long Island is on edge with this stuff. We need to do something. We need to make a strong statement of what we want and what direction we want in the government. That's just my opinion.
The other issue is timing, logistics. In order for us to do a letter, we have to come to an agreement and then review it. That wouldn't be until the next meeting.
Well, I think we should have reopening plan in place before our next meeting, just in case something, if the governor decides tomorrow we're changing something, we don't have a plan. We really don't have a. I would like to call another meeting then possibly next week with a reopening plan, possibly the last draft of the letter we present to the community, present our reopening plan to the community again, and we can have something hard and fast where we're going to be when this mandate is lifted, hopefully as quickly as possible. Consensus?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the reality is if we have some key updates, it makes sense.
And we all know that on every Friday, there's always an announcement out of our office, so we'll probably get some more information tomorrow. Okay. Anyone else?
I just have off that topic, it's a different topic I had, just a reminder from SEPTA about the Kudos Awards. They would just like to remind everybody that the Kudos Awards are open to anybody in the community, from anybody in the community, for going above and beyond in the special ed arena. So this can be from a parent to a student, it can be from a teacher to a parent, it can really be for anyone. So if you have any questions about that, you can email SEPTA or you can send your kudos directly to them. I think that email is sayvillesepta@gmail.com.
And I gotta say, the SEPTA organization and what they've been doing currently is unbelievably hard work and dedication to our kids' SEPTA.
Their next meeting is Tuesday,
I see a SEPTA
virtually,
member.
Tuesday the 15th virtually.
I want to point you up on pointing you out. All right, thank you. With that being said, we are going to go to public session, but before public session, I've read this statement at every meeting, and I'm going to read it again at this meeting. I wanted to take a moment before tonight's meeting begins to read a statement on behalf of the Board of Education. Often, we may not respond during public comment period of our meetings, but we do listen to what members of the community say. Many times during the school year, I've asked the Board Secretary to clarify comments made during the public comment period to make sure the Board understands what residents have said. As a Board of Education, we recognize certain fundamental freedoms and essentials of a democratic nation. Among them is the freedom of speech. These freedoms are not without restrictions. We have a country of rules, laws, while allowing these freedoms to prosper. With that said, the Board of Education encourages anyone to participate in public sessions to demonstrate civility as they address the Board of Community. On a separate note, I'd like to take this time to share with you public information that derived from state statutes, state education law, open meetings law. The New York State School Boards Association has a structured school board meeting. Many of you have been attending these meetings and have heard me speak to this. Board of Education meetings are held in public view, giving the public opportunity to watch, listen to proceedings of the board. In these meetings, the district updates the board on matters pertaining to the school district. In these meetings, the board may be required to take action on matters related to the operation of the district. Under Board Policy 1230, the board permits public comment under these certain guidelines. With that in mind, we refer to the parameters of the public comment period. Thus, a simple reminder of these are as follows. We will allow 30 minutes tonight for public comments. The board reserves the right to limit public participation in any given case with the extent maximum comment period is deemed necessary. Questions and comments by the public are limited to 3 minutes per person. The board is not permitted to discuss individual personnel, students, or community. I would like to close by thanking everyone for coming tonight, and if anybody has a comment, and I can guess there's probably a lot of people who have comments about masks. Is there anybody that has a question non-related to masks? Can they please kindly step up to the podium and ask me a question?
Well, I have someone that I would like to.
Can you step up to the podium?
I have a few things. One of them is not mask related. One is.
I'm going to tell you, and I ask you questions, and at this time at the end of the meeting, we will try to answer your questions.
Okay.
Or the district will get back to you.
Okay. And am I correct on allowed to take this off while I'm speaking?
Speak.
Okay. So I want you to know that I heard everything that you said, but I wrote this before attending the meeting, so there are some things that I mentioned that I know that you have already answered. Good evening, and thank you for your dedication to our community. My name is Shannon Ricard, and my family has been a member of this community for 26 years, and I am now raising my 3 daughters here. I am here for 3 reasons tonight. First, for our community to recognize the efforts of our school security, and most importantly, John, head of security. On Monday afternoon, I needed to make a police report about a suspicious vehicle parked near my children's bus stop. After making the report, I spoke to John. He answered his cell phone to take all the information while home with his family. He quickly made flyers to distribute to all of the security guards in our schools, made an appearance at our bus stop the next day to pick up and drop off, and by 9 a.m. he had already spoken to the elementary school principal at Lincoln Avenue. I know I am grateful for his hard work and efforts for keeping our children safe, and he deserves a round of applause for his dedication to the safety of our children. I saw him. I hope he heard
He's around
that.
someplace. You want to step in for a minute?
There he is.
So secondly, when I introduced myself, hopefully my name sounded familiar. In the past few weeks, I have sent emails asking for your support and parental choice. I noticed last week while watching our board members, when our board members speak, they sometimes pull their masks away from their face. Why is that? I can assume that's because you have a hard time speaking and saying a lot. The mask tends to become uncomfortable while being sucked into your mouth and difficult to take a breath of fresh air. I have been teaching for about 15 years. As a teacher, we model for students how to read with fluency and expression. While reading a book that may take 5 to 10 minutes long, we make sure that we sound as if we're speaking, infer the character's emotions to express them through our voice, and project our voice so all students can hear. Have you tried doing that with a mask on your face? Now imagine an 8-year-old trying to do their best reading with expression and fluency while having a mask sucked into their mouth. If you walk around a school building, you will notice that students' masks are wet in the center from a day of reading, answering questions, and socializing with their peers. It's disgusting. They deserve better than that, and changing a mask periodically is not the only solution. It's time for them to be removed, just like you can now do when you enter Target, a restaurant, or a mall. Last, I would like clarification on why our buildings have different rules. Is it
I'm
true?
sorry, can you repeat what you just said?
I said lastly, I would like clarification on why some of our buildings have different rules. Is it true that high school students are allowed to sit next to each other in the cafeteria without a mask on, but our elementary students are separated and rushed to eat because they are maskless at one time? To my knowledge, there have been no reported COVID cases in our district since February 3rd. So I am asking you to follow in the footsteps of our surrounding communities on Long Island and express to the governor that we have had enough. It is not a
I'm
school...
going to ask that you finish up.
I'm almost done.
Thank you.
It is not our school's job to provide test kits so we can test our children before they return to school at the end of February break with a mask on their face. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people here, so I'm not going to go over everything. I just wanted to turn in some documents on violations of open meeting law. I have a copy for each board member except for one. I guess, Kelly, if you could give these out to each one of the board members. This is John.
And can you just give me the Julie, please?
Okay.
Can you go to Julie, please?
If we could look into that before the next meeting, I have a copy for the attorney as well. And I had some other questions on the assessed value that you were using.
Can you give me the attorney's copy?
Yep. They're all the same, so.
I'll pass it on to the attorney.
Okay. And I didn't know what assessed value the district is using for the amount of the budget increase. So you can email me that. I want to let the other parents go. There are young children here, I think, who want to speak, and they need to get to bed. So I'll talk to you all at the next meeting, but hopefully the board can go over those violations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Stimmel and members of the board. My name is Jack and I'm in...
Can you just move back a little bit?
Hello, Dr. Stimmel and members of the board. My name is Jack and I'm in the 6th grade. I think that this is a great school district and you try as hard as you can to make this as normal as a year as possible. However, at this point in the pandemic, I think that it would be great to have the option to wear or not to wear a mask. All the time when I'm watching New York sporting events, the people there have the option to wear or not to wear a mask. They are very close together, so it seems kind of hypocritical that the only place where we don't have that choice is when we are 3 feet apart sitting at our desks in school. Earlier this week, they removed the mandate for most indoor public places. So it doesn't make any sense that we still have to wear it at school because schools are a public place, and again, we are 3 feet apart. I wanted to come speak tonight to ask you for your help in supporting choice. Before the school year started, there was a survey and 2/3 of the community voted for choice. I know that the masks have been made mandatory by the governor and that the school district has been following her order, but I would love to hear how you could help the community to achieve choice. Thank you for your time today.
What was it, Noah?
Jack.
Jack, can you come back in, Jack, please? Can you, I don't want to intimidate you or anything, but, you know what, Jack? Last week we had another student come and speak to the board, and frankly, it gives this entire board goosebumps. That we have students as articulate and as intelligent as we had one last week, as you. And the board hears you. This entire community hears you. We're all on your side, and we're going to do the best we can to address your needs. So we thank you. I applaud you. You're a great kid. Where's your parents? You know what? Thank you for doing such a great job. Next.
I think you followed the girl last week.
Go ahead, please.
This time I have something to read on somebody else's behalf. A friend of mine prepared something and she'd like to read it, but she could not be here at the last minute. So these are her words. My daughter was recently given her second mask exemption from a renowned doctor. The first was due to a sinus condition that allowed her mask breaks during an infection, and the most recent was from her cornea specialist, who felt that glasses placed over her mask for prolonged periods of time could work against the intricate work he has been doing with her eyes. His exemption was for all the time. The irony of this story comes from my 6th grader's response to this exemption. It was as follows. "Mom, don't even bother sending it in. I'm still going to wear my mask. Most of the kids with exemptions wear them anyway." Of course, this opened up a dialogue as I carefully probed her for more details. She explained in her eloquent 6th grade tween girl manner that kids not wearing their masks get ostracized from their peers and treated differently by their teachers. She recalled when she was given detention on one occasion from having her nose exposed and has witnessed countless other students penalized in the same way. Children inherently want a tribe and to fit in with others. They also want the approval of adults. These two factors, especially for an insecure middle schooler, is enough to keep that mask strapped on their face despite medical consequences or official exemptions. The damage is done. The fear is real, and the inconsistencies around them are causing a dramatic decline in our youth's mental health. They were given a mask-free day at school, and many adults in their lives are now maskless everywhere they go, including those authority figures and politicians mandating them to wear one. As a mental health professional, I can barely comprehend the increased rate of depression, anxiety, learning and emotional delays, substance abuse and suicide in our youth since the age of COVID. While everyone was traumatized by our world being inundated with a scary new virus, there was a collective understanding of what we were being asked to do. But those days are gone. And while change is hard, especially when trauma is involved, it is necessary to move forward. Our children deserve better than this. Their masks have become a badge of trauma and fear. Their faces behind them are desperate for change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. How you doing? Doug Batterberry. I have 2 middle school boys.
Thank you.
I'm going to read something first that my wife had posted on Facebook 2 weeks ago. Today was magical. The stress I've been feeling at work was washed away. Sorry.
Good man.
Stop the clock.
I did.
As I watched smiling students pour down the hall, a former student's eyes lit up. She gasped and smiled, pulling a hand to her mouth like she couldn't believe we were exchanging hellos with our whole face. The connection was undeniable, and my eyes filled with tears. Moments later, 2 more girls charged me, hugging me hard and giggling. "This is the best day ever," they said. There was a human connection today like never before. The initial energy and excitement turned into a feeling of peace and calm I hadn't experienced at work in a long time. I wish everyone could have experienced my feelings today, which is why I decided to post this on Facebook. That's where she had posted it. I'm praying for our state and our children. So that's the nice part. If my tone gets a little aggressive, it is not, okay? Dr. Stimmel, 2 weeks ago you said something. You said the students, that Tuesday, students had chosen to take off their masks. And then you corrected yourself and you said about the parents telling their kids to take off their masks. That's what you said. I was writing it into my phone as you said it. So nobody has to tell these kids to take their masks off. They want them off. Everywhere you go, kids don't want to wear masks. It's not parents telling their kids what to do, it's what kids want to do. Everywhere you look, everybody is taking their masks off. Everybody knows that masks are nonsense, including the board that I'm looking at, because you're all wearing useless paper masks. Those are useless. So that tells me that you're not taking this seriously. On the national level, the education establishment, the school board associations calling us domestic terrorists. the national teachers, the president of the teachers, National Teachers Union, thinks that we should be mask these kids until there's zero until there's zero risk. This is radical. And I'm looking at you with your paper mask thinking that you can't possibly feel that way. And if that's the case, when do we fight? When do you, not individuals, not just as Sayville, when do you get other school boards and other superintendents and other school boards and teachers groups to start fighting this? Because it wasn't just the kids that took their masks off last Tuesday. Overwhelmingly, it was the teachers. So none of you believe this. So why are we not fighting for us? Because we could say that at the end of February break, we're probably going to get the option, and we're looking for, what is the word everybody's using? Whatever it is, we need a plan, right? So we're waiting for that plan, but when's the next time this tyrant in Albany decides to suspend all of our constitutional rights and do this again and again and again? And I'm not, right now, like I said, I knew my voice was going to get, I'm not barking at any of you, I promise you. But when do you fight for us? That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for somebody to fight back on Hochul. When she has a meeting and there's the education establishment at that meeting, and they come out of that meeting and, oh, the school's still wearing masks, who's fighting for us? All right, I'm gonna finish on that. Who's fighting for us? When are you gonna fight for us? Because you obviously, by your masks, are not taking this seriously.
I'm going to ask that you finish up, and I'm going to respond to your question.
Okay, go ahead.
Your 3 minutes is up. To think for a minute that no one at this table has fought for any of the student in Sayville is a ridiculous statement.
I didn't say that. I never said that.
You did.
No,
I fight every day for your child. I fight every day for every other child in this district. Kelly fights every day for the child in this district. Maureen fights every day. Mr. Cooley fights every day. Mr. Cangelosi fights every day. And Dr. Birch fights every day. I've been doing this since 2003.
Is there any reason why you're yelling at me right now? Because when my brother spoke, you yelled at my brother for using his finger like you're doing right now. And you yelled at my brother for raising his voice.
Sorry, I apologize.
Exactly.
I apologize.
That's my point.
Just as you raised your voice, I apologize for raising my voice.
I told you I was not taking an aggressive tone, and I never said you're not fighting individually. I said, when do you start gathering people, groups, and fighting on a larger level?
Can I finish? And, you know, National Suffolk School Board fights, the State School Boards Association fights. There's a lot of districts on the island that fight. I sincerely apologize. I should not raise my voice. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. And my intention, I was not yelling at you guys. That's why
I'm yelling at the state.
I prefaced my talk by saying this is not aggressive. My voice may get raised, but it's not aggressive, it's emotional.
I really don't want to get in a dialogue back and forth. I know what I do for the kids in this district. I know what everyone around the board does.
Mr. Verdone, I didn't say that you personally don't do anything for me. I didn't single anybody out. I was very specific and I was very clear to say that.
I appreciate it.
But when do we all gather together and fight
I'll be
this?
more than glad to gather with anybody in this community to fight with you guys, shoulder to shoulder. I said that before, and I know many other people, many other board members, many other districts do the same thing.
Sayville School Board, you guys can't accomplish any of this on your own. So no matter what your feelings are, I'm not arguing any of your feelings. All I could do is look at your nonsense masks and assume that maybe that's telling me something.
And let's agree on that, they are nonsense.
Of course they are. But the kids are wearing them and they're all nonsense. You're all wearing nonsense masks. I wonder if the meeting with Hochul, if there's any of the superintendents, were they wearing nonsense masks? Were they fighting this, I mean, right now.
We had 3 minutes, we please get someone else up to.
What's that? Okay, so what is the process for fighting, number one, 3 minutes for an individual, not fighting, changing 3 minutes for an individual and 30 minutes hold? What's the process?
The process is a board policy.
What's that?
It's board policy.
But this,
Mr. Barry.
you're on,
Mr.
Barry, you're on the board.
I answered your question 3 times, we have 3 minutes, I would more than glad to have a separate.
There you go, and that's how you guys operate, I know that. You want my food? Nope.
Follow-up. First, I want to thank you, Dr. Stimmel, for getting back to me on the American Cares. He personally called me, and I appreciate that, so thank you so much. My question for the board is, what are the repercussions for our community, for our district, if we do not follow the governor's mandate, which is not a law? What are the repercussions?
funding,
hold
they
on.
can remove school board members, and they can remove the superintendent.
But for how long? Like, what is it, so right away, immediately? I know there has to be some sort of a,
Mrs. Nolan, can I ask you, I didn't start the timer, but if that's the only
Oh,
question you're gonna
sure.
have, I'm gonna let it go. This is simple. I said this at our last board meeting. This whole board, first of all, to direct the superintendent to break the law, we really can't be.
but it's not a law. It's not a law. Can we accept it's not a law? Just one thing, it's not a law.
We could direct the superintendent to, say there's no mask. And I can guarantee, the governor will replace each and every board member. And they will replace each and every board member with people of her choosing, not from this community. And the first thing they will do is when they're sacked, is put the Band-Aid back in place. Now, we could all do this board can certainly vote, yes, tomorrow there's no mask. Friday, we will be done. I can guarantee. If you don't think so, I guarantee, because what happened in Hopog, what happened in Massapequa, what happened in Island Trees, in any of these districts, the board was threatened with removal, as well as the superintendent. Now, we can do it, and you allow us all to continue to fight for you, for our students, or not. It's that simple. And I'm sorry, that's the truth. As well as possibly losing money. But I think more importantly is the board. We want this board replaced, that's exactly what can happen. And that's the truth.
So I will say one thing while I have my last 2 minutes, that there is a health committee, and I know you had mentioned everyone should write your letters, and there's a health committee that they are trying to get around this mandate. So Hockle has until the 14th, and they're trying to vote. I have a list of everyone to write your letters to.
Can you address the board, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So there is a list of everyone, there's senators, and there's also local assemblymen, and everyone needs to be addressed for this because Hockle's trying to have it sent through the Department of Health, and then therefore, this mandate's gonna run out on the 21st, and we will all be masked at any time they choose. So I have the list of everyone with me, feel free to stop by.
Thank you.
Good evening, administration and Board of Ed members. My name is Christina O'Malley. Like many of you, I'm a working parent. I've got 2 children that belong in the district, Jake, who goes to the Sayville Middle School, and Katie, who goes to Cherry Avenue. Like most of you, I'm a busy working mom, and I also have a husband at home. As I finally sat down to prepare for this, I thought about it. I was actually going to prepare a slideshow, which I didn't realize we only had a 3-minute minimum, so thank God I didn't do that. But I was going to prepare a slideshow to illustrate the hypocrisy that goes on in this district. To illustrate pictures that are posted on our own websites of our faculty members gathered at a table just like this, not wearing a mask. 4 hours later, guess who's gathered on the same table? Our kids. Wearing masks. Complete hypocrisy is what I really want to do. I want also to illustrate the governor, who I'm not a teacher, so pardon, endorses. Also stands there unmasked with children kneeling in front of her mask. This is who our leadership is. This is who we're following. Where is the data that supports children in school need to keep masks on? The only data I can find, and again, I have 0 time to find this, just like the rest of us, right? We have 0 time for this. The only data I can personally find is that cloth masks do not prevent the spread of COVID. And let me be clear on this. Vaccination is not a solution to no masks. Period. The end. That's all I'm going to say. For these mandates to be lifted and fought against, and for the freedom of choice to prevail. There has never been a blanket approach to healthcare. Why are we starting now? Why is what's good for me good for you and good for my children or your children? That makes 0 sense. Why does the cancel culture still exist and the fear-mongering here? I recently found out that the Boston trip was canceled. If vaccination is an issue at the destination, then let's figure out another plan. Are we really going to rip something else away from the kids? Frost Valley happened. If that can happen, this can happen. Let's come up with a replacement. So Frost Valley was a super spreader, right? That's what everybody's gonna say? Okay, what happened? Was anybody hospitalized from Frost Valley? Were there deaths? Did anybody, from my understanding of Frost Valley, it was just a gigantic inconvenience for those who had to drive up and get their children who were exposed and have them quarantined. That's my impression. I could be wrong. Let's continue to address the lunacy. Why is my son sitting at a desk in the cafeteria eating lunch?
After you finish up.
Okay. Why is he wearing a mask while playing band? Does the instrument sterilize his breath as it comes out the other side? Why, when I was physically illustrating, pointing out hypocrisies, lunacies, and other fear-mongering behavior, it makes me question your agenda. What are you fighting for? Where can the community see your effort? And again, it's not individual. I agree with Doug. It's going to take more than a village to make it happen. Okay. I'm just standing here begging for you not to settle for the status quo. You are our leaders. You portray what you want our children to be. You want our children to leave here as innovators, leaders. They have to lead by example. Show them the way. Show them the way. Take a page from other school districts. Let's get risky, and let's not settle for the status quo. Pandemic, endemic. End it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, please?
I got something. I want to, my name's Mike Cavino. I've lived in this town with my wife for 21 years. We have 3 boys. One's graduated, 2 still in the district. We follow rules. We do what we need to do. But the whole mask thing, and I heard what you had to say about, oh, they would wipe you out and take off the board of ed if we didn't follow the rules. How many of our civil servants, cops, firemen, teachers, doctors, have given up their jobs to fight the state and these mandates? Stand with us. We pay the bills here. You were with us. We're together. Just work with us. My kid comes home frustrated with the mask. I won't wear one anymore. It's, I've had COVID. It is what it is. I got it with a paper mask on, and I lived. So at the end of the day, we're not saying we want anyone to get fired, but the kids all come to school every day with no mask. What are you going to do? You're going to send them all home? Is the government going to fire and replace every board of trustees and everybody for the board of ed by the end of every week? When does it stop? Enough's enough. That's all we got to say. We just want the kids to get back to living their lives. They're stressed out as it is, and I know you guys know it, and you're there for it, but at some point you need to stand up and say enough. And that's all we're asking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another 5 minutes left.
How's it going? Tom Lotz. I've been in this town 41 years. I have 2 children in Cherry Avenue. I want to know, what's the consequence for my child not to wear a mask? If the teacher tells him to put a mask on, he says no. What's the consequence?
I don't have an answer to that question.
They just keep going. They just keep going on with their day. No consequence.
I didn't say that. I said I don't have an answer. It depends on the building principal, like I would guess.
Okay. So it's something that we'll find out, I guess. Sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll say something. I know we all have the same gripes and everything, and you say that your hands are tied and it's up to the governor and so forth. But what you can do is when the kids come in and they have their mask down, or they're at lunch and they're not wearing it, maybe look the other way. Don't always be, especially I have to say, I have someone in Cherry, I have someone in the middle school. The monitors are ridiculous. Okay, they chase these kids around. It's not over your nose. You can't, it's insane. If they're so scared of a 5th grader or a kindergartner, they're on the wrong field. They should not be monitors in a school of children if they're so afraid of them breathing on them. I'm sick of my daughter coming home and saying that she was yelled at because it's always down under her nose. So what? Maybe we can just stress in a very casual way that, listen, if you see a kid and the mask isn't on, let it go. That's what you can do if you really think you're on our side with the whole mask situation. Then just don't be so strict with it. Let them come in, let them wear it, but if it's down the whole day, who cares? That's what you can do. That's what you can do at this level. Your hands are tied on, with the law and the mandate, whatever, but you don't have to strictly enforce it. Let them be, let them breathe. Just let them be.
Thank you. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and I just want to, once again, I want to apologize to Mr. B for my comments. I don't mean any disrespect to your whole service. I apologize.
I'll come up, say hello.
That concludes our public session. We're going to move on to, we're going to take a 5-minute recess if there's no objection. Okay, we'll be back at 9:20. Next item on our agenda this evening is approval of minutes, 6-1. Can I have a motion, please? Second? I don't know who that's calling. Please. Discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Need a motion, could I just call 7-1 through 10-1, please? Motion. Second?
Second.
Any discussion on any of the items? All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, I need a motion, 11-1, to go to executive session to discuss particular personnel and legal matters.
Second.
Now you're in executive session. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.